Hey, this is Ben Eubanks, host of We're Only Human. I'm so glad you're here for the episode today. I'm excited for you to hear my conversation with Nicole Eisdorfer. Nicole's become a friend over the last year or two and somebody that I always look to for big ideas, big thinking. And in the conversation today, you'll hear things like the number one skill that Nicole would give every HR person if she had the magic wand. We're going to hear about big thinking, how to go beyond surface level ideas, and so much more. I hope you enjoy this conversation here with Nicole.
Don't conduct your analysis in isolation because data is so incredibly powerful.
Not defending just the tribe, but defending the organization.
Those creative people that you really want to keep empowered, keep excited, keep motivated, keep thinking.
A good experience pays dividends down the line.
Stereotypes tend to break down in proximity.
Welcome to We're Only Human, a podcast about human resources, business, technology, and the workplace. My name is Ben Eubanks, your host, and I'm so glad you're here.
I mean, if you strive for it.
I'm going to say you're better than okay. I'm going to go put that on the record right now. Hey everyone, welcome to We're Only Human. I am Ben Eubanks, your host, and I am here today with Nicole Eisdorfer. We're going to be talking about some fun things like, I don't know, how to be less terrible at HR, value alignment, connecting with the things our people need from us at work, all that good stuff. And Nicole, I've been looking forward to this for quite some time, so I'm so glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. There aren't even words.
Yes. Well, you and I were talking before the recording started about squirrels, and you and I both have like squirrels that have squirrels, okay, running around, just chasing our attention away. And so I'm excited to focus on some of these key things today and have some fun. I hope we laugh more than once. I hope the audience laughs more than once. Even if you're out there standing there washing dishes, driving the car, whatever else, laugh out loud, have some fun with it because we will. So, Nicole, before we get into some of the fun stuff we're going to be talking about, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
So I am one of those HR people who stumbled into HR accidentally. That's the story of so many of us. Mm-hmm. I spent some time doing the traditional HRBP things, and then I took a break and I decided to come back and learn about the things that we tend to be bad at in HR. So things like data and things like our systems and just the tech pieces. I spent a lot of time as an HRBP getting these absolutely beautiful dashboards from our people analytics people that would not in any way give me what I needed. I was like, oh, it's so pretty. And I'm never going to look at it again because it is not what I wanted. And so what I learned is the tech and data people were never going to learn our language. And so therefore, it was incumbent upon us in HR, if we ever wanted tools that were going to work for us, to learn their language. And so that's what I've spent the last couple of years doing. I did a boot camp for data analytics. I learned SQL. It was odd, but kind of fun. And now I'm doing this job where my two counterparts are industrial engineers, and it's amazing. My actual job is to ask a million questions all day and draw.
Which seems, for some people, that may scare them heavily, okay, to hear that you got to ask questions, you got to question things and be curious. Like there are people that I talk to about the importance of curiosity, like, yeah, but I don't know what question to ask. Like, all of them. What do you mean? Like, yes, you should be asking a question right now about what questions to ask. That's even a question itself. And so I love the idea that you get paid to be curious. You get paid to maybe push some boundaries a little bit or push on some of the things that are common assumptions. That's both challenging and probably a joy.
Oh my gosh, there are no untouchable third rails, and the level of delight that I take in saying that, if it makes you feel like your gut is clenching to ask the question, that is your red flag that it's a question that needs to be asked. And we take so many workarounds and inefficiencies and just sheer gunk for granted, and we don't even realize it's there. And that's my entire role right now, is just pushing back on why are we doing this? And I get to be like an unregulated toddler following my curiosity. Like I ask why a million times a day, and then I ask it some more.
That's exciting. Okay, so I'm thinking about the people that naturally are drawn into HR are usually a little bit rules oriented to some degree. But I heard a great leader years ago that said the best HR people are high people oriented, low rules oriented, because we know when and where to start pushing the boundaries, when and where to start saying, hey, I know that's what we have to do. And we'll make sure we do the minimum required by law, but we're going to actually go in this direction because we're better for our people. And start really challenging the commonly held assumptions. And yet at the same time, it's weird when you say that to an audience that doesn't know HR or isn't fully HR, because they're like, aren't you the ones who make the policy manuals and stuff? Like, yeah, but we're also the ones that know all the best loopholes.
Yes, and right. I always joke that HR people are all the people who, in their childhoods, all of their relatives spent all their time telling them they should go to law school. And we were like, no, I don't, and then no, it's not for me. But then we ended up in HR, which is sort of like sub law school. So,
Sub law school,
um,
extra law school. I'll go with extra. I won't go with sub. Come on now, we're beyond that.
extra law school. I like it. I
There
mean,
we
I
go.
told you I got to use the words, I forgot what words I got to use. What were they? Dear Lord. Yeah, fundamental misunderstanding. That was it. The
Yes,
Roomba of
yes.
thought. It has bounced off a wall, it's hanging on a stair, and now it's gone.
Okay, so I told you your intro would take like 5 minutes, and that's my fault. So this is good though. This tells everybody out there what they're getting. They're getting the peek behind Nicole's name and figure out who you are, what you're about. So one of the things that I do know about you is that you have this very broad range of interests, right? If someone could see your background right now, peer deeply into your podcast player, and you can see all of these really interesting things that are lined up behind Nicole on these shelves. How do you think that range of interests helps you better at the work that you do?
Yeah, so I don't know, 10 years ago, I read in some random article or book that I was in for school because I've been in school my entire adult life for literally everything that isn't math. Please don't make me do math. Although if it goes in Excel and can be pretty, then I'm on board. But there was this thing that was talking about how the people who have solved the biggest, stickiest problems in most fields were not people who came from that field.
Mm.
And the reason for that is because they were not the people who were stuck in the framework of that field. So physics problems are solved by chemists, they're solved by people who are
Uh-huh.
just to the side. And one of the things I say all the time is I like to go play in sandboxes that are just to the side of mine. And that's so I don't get stuck in one specific framework or one specific way of looking at things.
Mm.
Also, I don't do repetition. I get very bored very quickly.
Well, I was looking on the shelf here and I can't see it. There's a book called Range. I don't know if that was the one or not potentially, but
No, I
it's
don't think so. I
okay.
don't recognize it, but
You would enjoy that so much. And I've pushed that enough here on the podcast. People are probably thinking we're sponsored by the book Range. We're not, but it's why generalists triumph in a world of specialists for the same reasons you're talking about.
oh,
And the data get into, there was actually this interesting experiment that he talks about that wasn't meant to be an experiment. There was a team that he was observing during the research project of the book, and it was made up entirely of one group of maybe biologists or microbiologists. The other group he was watching at this other same time, other part across the country, had signed NDAs with both, so he couldn't talk to them about the work the other was doing, solving the same kind of problem, almost exactly. The other group, though, had epidemiologists and microbiologists and chemists as exactly what you're talking about. And they ended up arriving at the solution. And when he did, he's like, I wish I could tell them, but I can't. Number one. Number two, why? And it's because they had this broader range of people, of perspectives they brought to the problem versus when you are all microbiologists, all problems are solved with some microbiology answer. When you're
yeah,
in
that's
HR,
exactly it.
everything's all an HR answer. And you're saying maybe some of those answers that are outside the HR bubble, we should be bringing in and solving problems with because we don't have all the answers all the time.
Well, and also sometimes the answers to HR problems aren't HR solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, one of the rabbit holes that I'm currently playing in is the entire scope of what's possible with AI. And everyone's talking about AI right now. And I did this article a while back. It was the use case that Anthropic at OpenAI missed. And the entire thing I was thinking is that when you work extensively with these programs, they don't only know what you're interested in, what you're asking about, but they understand how you think. And so if I were Sam Altman, what I would be selling to the companies who have these enterprise accounts is the metadata and not, what did Ben search for? But how does the way Ben uses this program indicate to me things like his curiosity and his learning agility and his creativity? And I've played with it. It can tell you all of those things and it can justify how it's giving you its answer. It's amazing. Like, why aren't we doing that? And those are problems that have been in HR forever, right? We don't know how to measure any of those things, and we're saying they're the most important qualities.
Yes. We talked about that for the first few minutes, right? About curiosity as a quality, I think we look at in really high performing people in our field or in any field, I would argue. And yet, if you said, how do you measure curiosity for any of the people who are on your staff, you get this blank stare back. So it's really hard to do that. But I love the idea there.
Well, and then there's also this piece, right? So, okay, great, you can measure curiosity, but what do you do with that, right? Do you just have to go find the curious people and hire them? Well, it's a base level trait, and curiosity and creativity can also be trained. And it's not, I mean, you're not stuck with some level of creativity that you're born with and that's all you ever get. So how can you build those into your population and your development programs, and how can you foster these in your people?
See, that's the excitement that I get out of these conversations. This, not just a service level, oh, here's 10 more ways to use ChatGPT for HR. I go down a layer deeper for things like this, but what does it tell us about our people when they're asking questions like this? I could probably indicate which ones are curious by the number of questions they ask, not just something that's straight line linear, yes or no, but a how, a why. Like those types of questions are generally better quality. You get a better sort of response than someone that says, did they do that? Right? Yes or no. And when did, okay, yesterday, the day before. Like those are very discrete answers. The other ones are going to be much more open-ended and would lead to better conversations with a human, probably with the algorithm too.
Yeah, well, and there's also this aspect of the different kinds of curiosity and the different ways of iterating on the ideas. So, for example, when I use ChatGPT, I've at this point in time trained it somewhat extensively on my voice, and it still loves to throw that. But here's the thing transition in, which I have told it repeatedly I loathe and to please never ever use for anything that I am like drafting. So I will just put in a brain dump of whatever I was talking to myself about on my walk. I use Otter AI for that. So I'll go for a walk, I'll dump in like 15 ideas, come back, put it into ChatGPT, and then I say, okay, there's at least 5 discrete things that I'm thinking about here, but I think there's this underlying pattern behind them. I want you to serve as a thought leader and help me parse apart, based on everything you know about me, why I'm caring about these and why they're percolating in the back of my mind. And so it will do it. It will spit it out and it will say, based on your fundamental belief in XYZ, this, that, or the other. And then it's like, well, what do you want to do next with it? And I say, well, I just want to keep playing for a little bit. And I think this other thing is also related. And I'll just start pulling things in. And that's an example of convergent thinking. And the chat can measure it. It can say, based on everything it knows about you and everything it knows about typical users, where in the general population you fit on that metric. And will it need to be seen and tested? And will there need to be ethical oversight? Absolutely. But this is why HR should be in these conversations, because we know our problems. The engineers do not. And so they're going to build something for us, and it's going to be just like those gorgeous but useless dashboards that I used to deal with.
Yes, it will. In their mind, it serves a purpose, but it's too far removed from the actual user to be of any real value when it gets out there. That's a common problem. Again, in any field, you're building a product, you're delivering a service, or you're in HR and you're trying to take care of a challenge. The far more removed you are from it, the more your answer may look great from a textbook perspective, but terrible in a practical perspective.
Oh, yeah. The number of user experience tests and user acceptability tests where they never actually had a user look at it. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were guilty of it, that we rolled out an interface. And when I got to see it, I was like, wait, did an actual human being read these words and follow these instructions? Because I have a freaking doctorate and it took me a minute to uncode this. So, I mean, and that's another thing that I'm always talking about values alignment, and I'm always talking about like where all these things intersect. Right now, your values should be training your employees on how to make decisions for you. If you can't get in the habit of that, what on earth are you going to do when you start training machines to make decisions for you and you still don't even know who you are?
That is a good transition. I was going to ask you about the values alignment piece. So
sorry, we got there organically.
Hey, no, I was talking to someone recently. There was a story in the news about a company called Klarna. Their CEO was so publicly proclaiming the joys of AI and how they replaced all these people. And then just, in the last week or two, they've actually come out and said, hey, we were probably a little bit too aggressive there. We need humans to do some of this work. And we had none where we needed them. And so I expect to see that kind of thing. That's what you're talking about. You talked about ethical limits and everything else, the values limit. But like the values of an organization, if they're not in the people, they're in AI. But that was kind of a fun thing I was looking at, because I was expecting that at some point to come back around. And I have been talking about this sort of pendulum swings where we go too far in one direction, we figure out where the boundary is and come back, and eventually you'll settle somewhere, right? You'll vector in on the right trajectory. That was really fun. I feel like a pilot now, but you'll figure that one out. But until then, you're sort of bouncing around where those boundaries are and so on. So you talked about values alignment there, and I'd love for you to go a little deeper on that if you don't mind, because one of the things that I see as someone who's been an HR practitioner now tasked with the mission of serving and supporting those leaders out there right now, we don't always do a good job of aligning the things we're doing with the value the business needs from us, wants from us, the workforce needs. We sort of touched on that a little bit earlier, but go deeper there if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I think we're going to do a little mini history lesson. So
All right.
early 2000s, Jim Collins publishes Good to Great. Fantastic book. And keep in mind, the people who I'm about to complain about did not actually follow his advice. But he publishes this thing, and this idea starts to percolate in all of the people who have read it, that mission-driven organizations outperform their peers. Great. All we need is a mission. And so they convene their committees and they write their beautiful statements and they slap it on every single mouse pad. And then you have things like, Enron. Integrity was one of their core values. The irony of the people who led to the entire SOX compliance issue being the people who had integrity on their wall is sort of mind-blowing. And then sort of 2010s, all of the Deloittes and McKinseys started circulating this idea that organizations whose people are aligned with their mission outperform their peers. And so we're like, oh, okay, we need to hire people who match the words we wrote for our wall. And so they did that. And now we are all living the reality that physicians have been living for decades. So the people didn't stop and say, did the words we write, were they the truth? And so they hired a whole bunch of people who were emotionally invested in those words, and they're burning out like crazy. And so now you've got this like inefficiency around decision making, right? You can't trust your employees because you've trained them to make decisions not like you make decisions, and they're all burned out and disengaged anyway. So you extra can't trust them. So you layer in extra middle management. And now you're thinking, yeah, we can get rid of everybody. We'll just throw AI in. But no one stopped and said, are we telling the truth? I joke all the time that if I could get away with writing a book and name it anything I wanted, I would call it Stop Effing Lying to Your Employees. And it's not just because it's a bad thing to do. It's inefficient and it's silly.
I don't know if you saw it when we shared last week some of our new data from our hiring study, and we asked about how honest candidates think most companies are in their employer brands. So they're not employees yet. They're still out there in the wild, but how honest do you think they are? And only, I think, 17% said they think it's very honest. The other 83% were like a little bit or not at all. And so there's definitely some trust issues, and you can look at any of the trust barometer stats and everything else that are out there. Trust is lower than it's ever been in a lot of those, whether it's business, whether it's government, all these different institutions. And again, part of it's just because we've been conditioned to tell a good story, make sure that we're touching on the buzzwords. As long as we say these 5 things, it's all going to be okay. In the real world, no, not really.
Oh yeah, no, the number of companies that have fun or be fun or fun in any format, I've seen their meetings. They're not fun. I'm sorry. That word does not mean what they think it means. And, everybody has different things that they value. I'm not saying that there are some values that are better than others. There are some that are better for me, but I wish that more people took fundamental economics, because in economics, you learn that the way efficient markets work is that both sides have complete information. And so when one side is lying about who they are, whether maliciously or not, right? Like they just, the marketing people threw their spin on things and it's beautiful and not at all truthful. And then the other side is using AI poorly to ramp up their resume and also lie about who they are. I mean, it's just madness. And it's a terribly inefficient market. And of course, no one trusts each other.
I'm still stuck on the Princess Bride reference a minute ago. This don't think that word means what you think it means.
Hey, my mug says fluent in movie quotes and sarcasm.
I mean, again, the podcast audience can't see the mug though, Nicole, so they need that reference, they need that reminder there. So if you can squeeze one more in before the end, I would be happier than the Dread Pirate Roberts. So the efficient markets piece there on economic comment, that one like got me a little bit, because I've been in closed door sessions with companies like Glassdoor and others. And that's the picture they're trying to paint of that. But then when you talk to like behind the scenes, how the strategy works, it's like, make sure and tell all the people that are really happy who had just joined this month to go out there and post all the reviews about the company. And anyone who's leaving, let's go out there and dispute those or try to, mark those down or find a way to get those off, because, maybe they're not really what they say they are. So
Yeah, they're
there's
not, I mean, they're telling us about a problem we already know about, and we're already ignoring that problem. So, I mean, it's like the we value your feedback. I'm sorry. We've been giving you our feedback. Sorry, I used to be in charge of employee surveys, so
yes,
I've
yes.
got feelings.
Well, so go back to the transparency. That's what that spurred my idea. And then I lost it for a second because I was talking movie quotes and I got stuck there. But there's a piece of research we did a while back that ties in with that really well. So we actually asked job seekers about what type of video content they want to see during the hiring process. Not video interviews, but video content you want to see. Do you want to see the pretty corporate culture video? Do you want to see a video from Nicole saying, hey, listen, here I am on the shop floor. Here's what it's like working here. I get here at 7 a.m. It's hot and sweaty. What do you want to see? And they prefer that second kind. They want to see someone at the company doing the job, sharing, even if it's not pretty and polished. And we asked them why. It's like, because it feels real. Good, bad, ugly, it's at least real. The other one is polished and pretty, and you're never going to say something that's untoward, towards the company or unpleasant about the job in that little corporate culture video. It's going to be beautiful trees and rainbows and all these other good things. And there are hard days that you're coming at the fun meetings. Like there are hard days. It is work. It is not play. It's called work. But at the same time, if it feels real and like I can get behind the idea that, yeah, every day is not perfect, but that person is someone that I could see myself doing that job too. People like and appreciate that at a very innate level before they've ever even opted into working there. And you're talking about things like employee surveys and stuff. That's after they're already there. And that hurts me to think that we're creating a different environment that's not lined up with what people are looking for, what they're seeking from us, the way that they've accepted that job, hoping for this vision of what great looks like in their future career. And the company kind of dumps on that and changes directions or tells them something isn't true, or oh yeah, we'll get around to that, and it never happens. All those little things build up into big things.
Yeah, one of those core concepts that I just remember hearing way back. I was in one of my 50 quadrillion majors, but I finally finished in was organizational behavior and communications. And they talk about this idea of the psychological contract. And it's so critical because whether you know you made those promises or not, the employee has built up this idea in their mind of what it's going to be like to work with you. And so when you, kind of going back to value statements, when you use things that are really generic and can be interpreted in 50,000 different ways, you're not setting yourself up for success because your idea of fun might be tremendously different from my idea of fun. And I am going to hold you accountable to my idea of fun.
That's no different than, hey, we have a pay range for this job, Nicole. It's from 70,000 to 90,000. You only heard one number, and I only meant one number when I said that, right? I meant 70, you heard 90, but that's the numerical version of what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're saying this, they start building that picture in their head of what that's going to be like. And the term I use all the time is expectation violation. They expect this, they get that. And that bigger that gap is, the more frustration occurs in there. And it doesn't create a healthy, positive relationship, we'll just say in the very polite terms, for that employee and their employer.
It makes people frustrated and it reduces trust. I think there's something else that you said that sort of tickled in the back of my brain that I want to come back to. You were talking about the Glassdoor and the sort of gaming the system. And that's one of those, I mean, you've worked in analytics. You know exactly what I'm about to talk about. I can see it showing up on your face. But when you measure, what you measure matters, right? And so as soon as you pick a measurement, the thing you're going to measure, and you measure an outcome, but not the process behind it, people find a way to game that system. And so like, we measure all the time whether we're meeting our SLAs for HR requests. And we could be meeting our SLAs. We could have perfect numbers. But what that doesn't show us is what the process is doing behind it. Do we have perfect numbers because no one's sending in requests? And is no one sending in requests because we're doing perfectly or because our system doesn't let them? Are we meeting our SLAs because we're just closing cases without actually doing what the employee needs? And so, whatever you measure, like if you're measuring the outcome and you don't know anything about the process behind it, well, I mean, what are you actually measuring?
I feel like you and I need a series here on the podcast, like HR squirrels, just chasing these ideas that are just popping up. Because you're talking about the very old, I read it in school, on the folly of hoping for A while rewarding B, right?
Yeah,
we hope
exactly.
for outcome A and we reward B, and B gets done. But I was hoping for A. I was hoping for this. I was hoping for people to take care of people. when it comes to
Right.
this employee experience. They're submitting help tickets, and we're going to take care of them, make them feel heard and supported. And maybe just treating them like crap so they stop responding and stop asking for help. They're just going to go to their manager and ask for it. But you said you didn't say it out loud, but that's sort of what you're hinting at. There's something that might be helping us. Yeah, we're hitting the right numbers, but people aren't asking for help. Or if our answers are like one word answers, yes, no, instead of giving them more than what they need, they're going to start doing it themselves. Like that's what you get to. So I'm with you. Okay, we've got to be measured. We've got to have those things in place, but the how matters a lot. I learned that early in my HR career. The what we talk about all the time, but the how, the why, those things don't get talked about as much. Going back full circle to the questions of the ChatGPT, but those sorts of questions don't get considered as much and don't get talked about as much because it's harder, I guess. There's more nuance to it. But you and I both know if I am going in to counsel an employee who's got a performance issue, what I say matters, but how I say may matter even more. And whether they're going to turn it around or it's going to be, the ship's on fire before I even walk out, it's already sinking. So the how matters so much.
Yeah, I think there's also, one of the things I really appreciate about my current role is that we are really looking at the process behind our outcomes. And that's not common in HR. You're starting to see it more, right? This HR as a process or HR as a product idea is gaining a lot of momentum. And I like that because it has this sort of customer-centric focus to it. And I want to make sure that we don't become like the physicians. And all my metaphors are either food or medicine because my husband's a physician and who doesn't love cupcakes? But, one of the big drivers of the opioid pandemic that they don't talk about was the concurrent focus on patient satisfaction scores. And so judging doctors on their patient satisfaction. If I'm a patient and I go to a doctor and I complain about my back pain and my doctor says, you have to go do 8 weeks of physical therapy and some of it you're going to have to live with, I'm going to give him a radically different score than if he gives me a bottle of pills that just makes it go away. Unfortunately, the harder answer was the correct answer.
So one of the things that I have the pleasure and privilege of doing every year is going to Guatemala. I teach a group for some young adults on career readiness and on personal finance. And that comment you just made, Nicole, is one that I give them every single time I go. The best decisions are almost always harder now and better for you long term. The terrible decisions will feel great today. You'll be so happy today. But 5 years from now, 10 years, even a year from now, you will regret that you made that decision. And so think long term. And in this case, right, the medical example is a great one. Thinking long term before we make any sort of call on that is the best advice, I would say.
Yeah, it's huge. And this is, going back to way back your original question. This is why I end up playing in all sorts of sandboxes. Like you learn so much by leaving your own.
Okay, so I'm going to put you in a very uncomfortable position here. All right.
Oh, gosh.
Are you ready? Okay. 60 seconds or less. What is one skill you think that every HR person needs? If you could snap your fingers and they all had it right now, what is that skill?
Okay, so we're not going to go for a Princess Bride moment, but we are going to reference The Matrix. Okay. So you remember the scene in The Matrix where Lawrence Fishburne and Keanu Reeves are walking through, looks like the city streets of New York, and he's like, everything around you is the Matrix, and all of the people are part of the Matrix, and they will
protect the red dress.
Matrix. Yes, the woman in the red dress. Exactly. That scene, right? So everyone around you will protect it. What I want HR people to have the ability to do is to see the Matrix and stop being part of the Matrix, because the bureaucracy is so ludicrously self-protective. And I mean, we all do it, right? We generate paperwork seemingly just to justify our own existence. So I think I'm at my 60 seconds, but that's what I want. I want them to be able to see the Matrix and step outside of it so they can fix it.
I love that. So one of the ideas in the new book, the new payroll book that's coming out pretty soon that I wrote is on, listen, I'll be honest here. Okay. Podcast, everyone won't hear this, but the people that listen to the podcast, here's your secret about the payroll book. You can change payroll for any number of HR things, and the book will fit. Learning, right? Some of the other HR things we do, employee relations, talent management, recruiting. You can change some of the things out, and the ideas in there are still going to apply. It's just using a lot of payroll examples and so on. There's your secret tip for the day. But one of the things I talk about in there is we get busy doing things, and the overhead of work just gets bigger over time. There's more and more things to do, and just managing that becomes overwhelming. It's one of the big ideas in Cal Newport's new book, Slow Productivity. The things get overwhelming just managing work. And one of the things we are so reticent to do is to say, I will not do that thing. I'm going to stop doing this. because we feel like all of it has to be done because we've always done it. We don't want to let someone down, right? Someone was giving you those dashboards because they felt like they needed to, even if they're a complete waste of time for you, they're doing it because someone else told them to, or that's what they've always done. And in the book, I tell the story of when I was quitting my first HR job. I was the paperwork pusher for the whole team. That's all I did all day, advocating for a couple months. Like, I could stop doing this part because it's not really adding any value, and I could do other stuff. And I kept getting stay in your lane, stay in your lane, stay in your lane. Finally, I found a lane somewhere else, which is another story. But when I was leaving, they got the whole team together to say, okay, let's decide how we're going to parse out the stuff Ben was doing. So we're not going to hire anybody else right now. And ultimately, they decided that about 80% of what I was doing didn't need to be done anymore. I've been telling them that for months. They just were unwilling to see it. And so to see the matrix, to see the things, how decisions are made, to see all the sorts of things you're talking about, and to not just operate in it, but to rise above it and to see how you can change things for the better. I think that's a tremendous approach, tremendous skill. And I don't have my magic wand handy, but I'll go ahead and wave it, the imaginary one, right now for all of you out there listening to us. That is my biggest wish for you as well. I love that, Nicole. Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, so if someone wants to follow your mad science ideas, all the other things, you mentioned earlier, you've written articles, some articles, things like that. You're sharing these things out there. It's not just all happening in your head. Thank goodness, because we need more of that. Where can they find that?
So I'm ludicrously and laughably active on LinkedIn. I'm like the world's biggest idea cheerleader on there. And I also have started putting a lot of my content on Substack because it's so much easier for me to find things than LinkedIn. And that's just Nicole Eisdorfer. I'll spell my last name. It's crazy long, but Nicole EIS like Sam, D like David, OR, F like Frank, ER. Can you tell I have to say that all the time? .substack.com. And you can search for Nicole Eisdorfer or Truer Words on Substack and you'll find me. Or I share it all the time on LinkedIn. So there's always a link throwing up at least once a week.
Perfect. I'm going to make sure and get that link into the show notes so everybody can check that out.
Thank you.
Follow you. Truer Words is what it's called, but
yeah,
it's this kind of conversation in a written format, basically. Ranging across these different things.
Completely unhinged.
And I'm not going to go that far, Nicole, but it's really, if you are thinking, listen, if you've heard this today and you're thinking, this steps my toes a little bit, I feel like I do need to be a little more curious. I would love to have a little bit, maybe not all, but a little dose of what Nicole's got. This gives you that, absolutely, as a steady drip feed to keep you so Nicole, I have appreciated this so much. As you can tell, had fun. We didn't even we stayed sort of somewhere around the questions I had sort of planned, but it's been a far-ranging conversation, and I'm so grateful to be with a fellow squirrel chaser and friend. I appreciate you for the insights you shared today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had so much more fun than I ever dreamed possible.
Wonderful. All right, to everybody else out there, hope you got some great ideas too. A couple good references to movies, maybe not Princess Bride a couple times, but at least a Matrix plugged in there. And we'll catch you again next time. We're Only Human.
Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm honored to have you as a listener. If you enjoyed this episode, please take 10 seconds to rate it at iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Also, if you know a friend that could benefit from today's conversation, please pass it their way. After all, a rising tide lifts all ships. To see show notes, sponsor information, and our full show archives, visit onlyhumanshow.com.